In a small village, there was a young man named Daiichi who was known for being incredibly lazy. While others worked hard to tend their fields, care for their families, or pursue their studies, Daiichi spent most of his time lying under the shade of a tree, watching the clouds drift by. He would often say, "Why work so hard when life is short? I just want to be comfortable." The villagers would shake their heads and whisper about him, calling him the lazy ox. But Daiichi didn't care. He was content with his idle ways, even though it meant he barely had enough to eat, and his home was in disrepair. One day, Daiichi's older brother, who was a hard-working farmer, grew frustrated and decided to take him to see a Zen master named Master Hiroshi, who was known for his wisdom and unconventional methods. "Maybe the master can show you the value of effort," his brother said. Daiichi reluctantly agreed, and the two made their way to Master Hiroshi's temple, which was situated at the top of a steep hill. When they arrived, they found the master sitting quietly, meditating under a cherry tree. Daiichi's brother bowed and explained, "Master, my brother Daiichi is very lazy. He refuses to work or do anything that requires effort. Can you teach him the importance of hard work and discipline?" Master Hiroshi looked at Daiichi and then at his brother. Without saying a word, he nodded and gestured for Daiichi to follow him. The master led Daiichi down a winding path to a small field behind the temple, where there was an old, broken plow lying on the ground. The field was overgrown with weeds, and it looked as if it hadn't been tended in years. The master handed Daiichi a hoe and said, "I want you to clear this field. Remove all the weeds." Daiichi stared at the field, his face full of disbelief. "But master," he protested, "there are so many weeds. This will take forever." Master Hiroshi simply smiled and said, "Just begin, one weed at a time." Seeing no way out, Daiichi reluctantly started pulling out the weeds, but he did it half-heartedly, grumbling the whole time. After a while, he stopped and said, "Master, this is pointless. Even if I clear these weeds, more will grow back. It's never ending." Master Hiroshi nodded thoughtfully. "You are right," he said. "Weeds will always grow back, just as laziness will always find a way to creep into our lives. But the purpose is not to remove the weeds once and be done with it. The purpose is to keep clearing them, every day, with patience and diligence." Daiichi was frustrated by the master's words. "Why should I waste my time on something that will never be finished?" he asked. The master didn't answer. Instead, he led Daiichi to a small shed near the field. Inside, there was an old grinding stone, and beside it, a pile of rice grains. The stone was covered in dust, as if it hadn't been used in years. Master Hiroshi pointed to the grinding stone and said, "I want you to grind this rice into flour." Daiichi sighed but started turning the stone, slowly grinding the rice. The work was repetitive and tiring, and after a while, Daiichi's hands were sore. He was tempted to stop, but every time he looked at the master, he saw him watching with calm, patient eyes. Finally, Daiichi could bear it no longer. "Master, I don't understand. Why are you making me do all this hard work? What does this have to do with my laziness?" Master Hiroshi smiled. "You say this work is hard, and yet you are doing it. You feel tired, but you continue. This is the first step in overcoming laziness, taking action even when you do not feel like it. The body may be tired, the mind may resist, but when you continue, you become stronger." Seeing Daiichi's confusion, the master continued, "Laziness is not defeated by wishing it away. It is defeated by movement, by taking one small action after another. When you were pulling weeds, it was not about clearing the field, it was about learning persistence. When you were grinding rice, it was not about making flour, it was about learning discipline. Each task was a way to train your mind, to teach you that you are capable of more than you think." Daiichi was silent for a moment, reflecting on the master's words. "But it's still so hard," he said. I don't have the energy or motivation. The master led Daiichi to a stream that flowed near the temple. He picked up a small stone and tossed it into the water. The stone splashed and then sank to the bottom. "You see how the stone sinks?" he asked. "It is heavy, and so it falls. But the water, it flows endlessly, always moving, never stopping. It does not need motivation to flow. It flows because it is its nature." He turned to Daiichi and said, "You must learn to be like the water. Do not wait for motivation to begin. Just start, and let your actions carry you forward. When you stop thinking of the work as hard, and instead see it as a simple flow, you will find that you are never truly without energy. The energy comes from the movement itself." Daiichi stood by the stream, watching the water ripple and flow around the rocks. For the first time, he understood what the master was trying to teach him. Laziness was not a lack of ability, it was a lack of movement. The more he avoided effort, the heavier he became, like the stone. But if he could learn to move, to take one step, one action, no matter how small, he could keep flowing, just like the water. From that day on, Daiichi began to change. He still felt lazy sometimes, but whenever that feeling came, he remembered the master's words. Instead of lying under the tree, he would get up and do something small, sweep the floor, tend the garden, or help his brother on the farm. He found that once he started, the work became easier, and soon he was doing more than he ever thought he could. The villagers were surprised to see the lazy ox become one of the most diligent and hard-working people in the village. They would often ask him, "What happened to you, Daiichi? How did you change?" Daiichi would smile and say, "I learned that laziness is just like a heavy stone. If you sit still, it will sink you. But if you move, even a little, you will find that you can float, and soon you are flowing like a river. And once you start flowing, there is no stopping you." Moral of the story: laziness is not a permanent state, it is a habit of inaction. The key to overcoming it is not to wait for motivation, but to take the first step no matter how small. Movement creates momentum, and action brings energy. Just as water flows without stopping, learn to keep moving, and you will find that the effort becomes easier. Start small, and soon you will be surprised at how far you can go.